Star Wars 7x7, episode 2553. So I wanted to touch base on this Essential Legends collection business because there, are 3 of them out now, and they just announced 4 more coming later this year, and they just announced that there's going to be more of them in 2022. And I wanted to talk about it. Let's just get started in just a second here. Punch it. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7x7, your daily dose of Star Wars joy, and thank you so much for joining me for it. So I guess, in full disclosure, this, may as well be considered like a paid placement episode, because the 3 Essential Legends collection novels that were just released in mid-June, I guess, Del Rey was kind enough to send me copies of each of them, and they are, they're really beautiful, and so I'm just, letting you know that they sent these along, but they didn't necessarily say, hey, we're only sending these if you do a podcast episode about it or anything like that. There was no quid pro quo about that. It was just, hey, we're sending you these. We hope you think it's worth talking about. And I do, actually, because, really I want to talk about the whole, idea of this Essential Legends collection. And they sent out a release to talk about the new stuff that's coming. On September 7th of this year, the Essential Legends collection is going to expand. So they did, as part of this first collection, they did Heir to the Empire, which is the first of the Thrawn trilogy from Timothy Zahn that kicked off the whole expanded universe situation in the 90s, or at least the expansion of this expanded universe, if you will. So in September, they're actually going to release Dark Force Rising and The Last Command. They're going to complete the trilogy, which is pretty cool. And they're also going to do another Darth Bane novel. So the, not this one, the A Path of Destruction, which is book 1 of the Darth Bane series, is one of the first ones that they released. And so they're going to do The Rule of Two by Drew Karpyshyn. And they're also going to do a novel, Rogue Squadron, by Michael Stackpole. And of course, with what we were talking about the other day about Rogue Squadron and the Matthew Robinson rumor kicking around, one wonders if that isn't a purposeful selection. And in a similar thing to Shatterpoint, which was the 3rd of the 3 Essential Legends collection books that was released earlier in June, that one was not only released as this, expanded trade paperback size thing, but they also commissioned a brand new audiobook unabridged retelling of it, yeah, you know what I mean, by Sullivan Jones is the narrator for that. And for this new release that's coming in September with the 4 books that they're coming out, they're actually doing a new unabridged audiobook version of the Rogue Squadron book, and it's being done by Mark Thompson. So this is the thing that is just kind of messing with me to some degree, because, as we know, in April of 2014, the folks at Disney said, okay, we are rebooting the canon, and so everything that wasn't a movie or the Clone Wars cartoon is no longer officially canon, and we're going to start redoing everything and considering the storytelling. Not that this stuff isn't used in current storytelling. In fact, it's considered a treasure trove for writers to be able to go visit and pull information out of to rebuild the canon, as it were. And just to refresh you, or if you're a comparatively newer listener and you're not familiar with my take on this, I personally was never that deeply invested in the expanded universe. I didn't get down, the rabbit hole more than maybe a dozen novels when they were first released back in the 90s and a few comic series. So, I certainly understand the investment that people who were deep into it have, and how difficult that is when anyone decides to reboot it. It's not Disney doing this with Star Wars that's that it's only ever been done by. Storytelling has been rebooted in comic series over and over again, basically. But for me, at least, it didn't hamper me, and in fact, I almost welcomed it to some degree, because it finally meant that I could re-dive into canon again and actually get somewhere around the idea of holding all these stories in my head. At some point in the, late 90s, early 2000s, I kind of gave up hope on that possibility, and it's too big for me. I can't deal with it. So, yeah, that's where I stand with that particular conversation. And so seeing these things being issued as the Essential Legends collection, I find a little bit, confusing and intriguing at the same time. I've said on the show once or twice that, I wonder why they can't just look at some of the novels from Legends and just say, you know what? Everything looks great with that. We're just going to recanonize it. We're just going to say, yep, that one can come back into the canon in its entirety and everything's good. We don't need to just have it out there and have people picking pieces out of it to bring into their own stories. No, we're just going to bring that whole one forward. And, when they pick stories like these for the Essential Legends collection, it makes me wonder whether this is, kind of their backdoor way of saying that that's what they're doing. And, nobody's given any indication of that. Like, I haven't heard anything anywhere of people saying, yeah, this is what's really going on. They're saying it's the Essential Legends collection, but really what they're doing is leading on to that point. No, that's not anywhere out there. That's just me hoping and speculating on it. But it certainly seems like that wouldn't even be possible with the Thrawn novels, with the Heir to the Empire and Dark Force Rising and The Last Command, because of the way we left Thrawn at the end of Star Wars Rebels. And if you need or are interested in the refresher, he's been jumped into the great unknown, into hyperspace with those humpback whale-like things called the Purrgil that have the crazy tentacles that can latch on, and they are organic beings that can launch themselves into hyperspace, and they wrapped up Thrawn's destroyer, the Chimera, and Ezra Bridger is stuck on there as well, and so nobody knows where they are. In the end of Rebels, the epilogue, that's when Ahsoka and Sabine say it's time to go find Ezra. We have talked about that here on the show as well. But for this to work for Heir to the Empire and its subsequent novels to come in, we would have to have a story of the discovery of Thrawn and have him basically be able to deal with an Imperial remnant in such a way that it wouldn't eliminate what happened with the events of the Aftermath trilogy of novels by Chuck Wendig and the Galactic Concordance and all that stuff. Although the notion of cloning certainly extends itself throughout Star Wars storytelling post-Return of the Jedi with that particular series, and the evil Luke clone, which is Luke with 2 U's, which always struck me as amusing. But the Darth Bane novel, that's far enough in the past where, that one seems like, yeah, you could just decide that that whole thing is canon again and be perfectly fine and not, create some crazy butterfly effect that ruins everything else. As far as Shatterpoint goes, well, I'm not familiar with that story and I am going to read it because I'm curious. It's a Mace Windu story and it has to do with Depa Billaba being out somewhere and then disappearing and leaving a cryptic message behind, and Depa Billaba was apparently Mace Windu's Padawan originally, and so Mace is the one who has to go out looking for her, and that does sound fascinating, so I'm kind of curious. And of course Depa Billaba has been brought back into the conversation very recently because she was depicted in the beginning of the Bad Batch with their episode, also called Aftermath, as it turns out, and seeing Order 66 and her unfortunate and untimely passing as a result of the turn of the clones against the Jedi. But I think ultimately, what this is about is this 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm this year. And if I remember right, the launch of the original 3 of these was tied to the whole notion of celebrating the 50th anniversary of Lucasfilm, even though I don't think that badging is anywhere on here. It's something that's on action figures and stuff like that, but not on these, but certainly a celebration of various aspects of what Lucasfilm has done over the past 50 years. And so, I wanted to, I think, see something more from it, have them say surprise, and it doesn't seem like that's going to be the case. So, that's a little bit of a bummer, but again, that's my own expectation on things. It's not necessarily any fault of anyone else's at all. And from conversations I've read online, the Legend stuff still sells, apparently. It's still moving copies off the shelves, and so it makes sense for Del Rey to pick a couple that, are probably like proven sellers over the years, and hey, let's give them a little bit of an upscaling and create this neat new format and rebrand them not just as Legends but Essential Legends. And yeah, seems like a pretty good business decision too, so good for them. Yeah, they are really well done. The cover art is tremendous as well, and so yeah, that's what I got to say about these. I wish that they were going to be just made into the canon. And so, yeah, if any sort of online campaign happens around that, then I will certainly be a big supporter of it. But there you go. That's what I got to say about these Essential Legends Collections things, and that's what's going to do it for this show. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for joining me for it as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
7x7 is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox, and is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other Star Wars related items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited, or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2021 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.